Really? Do they know us?
They haven't met.
I haven't.
Still learn.
All right. Why is it not playing?
I don't know. What did you do? I blame
What
you.
are we gonna
There
do
we go.
to fix Jerry?
Putin's alive.
We have the tools, we have the talent.
Let's roll.
Silent breed is people!
Manimal. All hail King Manimal.
I love that intro. It makes me
There's
smile.
a shocking lack of Sequest in that intro. I scream bias.
Yeah.
Shocking.
You have to bring that up with our lovely man who created that, the lovely Kevin Cafferty.
Oh, I will.
Yes.
Yeah. Please send a sternly worded letter.
In the
Well-
tradition of Jean-Luc Picard, I will write a strongly worded letter to Kevin.
I was about to say in the strong tradition of Canada.
Well, yes, we're very good at that too.
You are very polite until the war starts.
Look, it's not our fault that the Geneva Convention was primarily written because of what we did. That's not on us.
Wait, what?
I still love, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy's like, oh, that lady Geneva, she was so nice. Last time we did everything on her list, and we think we're going to get her to add some new ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a whole other podcast, and that would be Denise and I doing it. And
Yes.
yeah, we could talk for hours because there's some really horrible stuff we did in World War One. Really bad.
Oh, yes.
Not good.
But hello.
Anyways, that's not what we're talking about tonight.
No.
Well,
Hello, Internet. I name as Gary Mitchell, and joining me over there in the middle is Joe Caballero.
it's Caballero.
Caballero.
Tell people hello, Joe.
Oh, hi. How are you? Much like Guy Caballero, I'm pretending to be paralyzed. I don't know. I absolutely love. If I could have found a white suit, I would have worn it. I swear.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Joe Crow. I'm the co-director with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady to my the stage left.
Point the other way,
Is that-
Joe.
Yes.
Point the other way.
Anyway, that's Deanna.
Hello,
I
Deanna.
will let her. Yeah, whatever.
Introduce thyself.
I'm Deanna. I have known these two chuckleheads for, gosh, we don't even want to say how many years at this point. 25 years.
At least.
I think we're in the
But I am the only actual real Canadian on this podcast. And I've been brought in for my Canadian expertise
Yes.
for the topic tonight.
Yes, because our topic tonight is SCTV, Second City Television, is 50 years old this year,
Wow.
which
I'm not that old.
breaks my brain. So, Joe,
Yes.
for people who don't know, what is SCTV?
SCTV is much like your Saturday Night Lives in America. In Canada, where Deanna is, even as we speak, they collated a, dare I say, a Justice League level of comedic superstars to create a sketch comedy show, much like SNL would be like, because like as we pointed out just a moment ago, it's only a year younger than SNL was. But from the start, it had a through line. Like each episode it was a complete story. It was like a complete sitcom with sketches in the middle.
Yes.
And it had, of course, it has not. It only lasted what, 4 seasons, 5?
It actually lasted, I
It
believe,
lasted to
6. I want to say 6 seasons. Because
went
it
to
bounced around, eh? Like
Yeah.
like many things, it bounced around.
Yeah,
In
it was SCTV original run was 76 to 81. Then it became SCTV Network 99 because cable from 81 to 83. And then it was the SCTV channel from 83 to 84, so one season there.
oh wow. Well, so there's so much that we
So about
haven't
8
seen.
seasons.
6, actually, 6.
6. Okay. Well,
6
I can't do
officially.
math. I'm
That's
American.
I know, honey. That's why I'm here.
That's like, let's see, 16. That's like
That's
probably
about 20 years in Canadian. Like, if you count up how long Canadian television shows last, it's either 20 years or it's like a blink of an eye. Because in Canada, television seasons either last like one season, or like the Murdoch mysteries, they will be with us until the Earth explodes into 1,000 pieces and drifts off into space. Because Yannick Bisson apparently has a portrait of himself in the attic that is aged horribly, but he has not. So in Canada, television shows either blink and you miss it, or they go on forever. And I mean that.
Yep.
The thing
And
with
it
SCTV is, and we'll get to this. It didn't last as long as the continually produced SNL, but almost every person in the cast of Saturday Night Live has gone into the comedy lexicon.
You mean everybody on SCTV has gone into the comedy.
SCTV, yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the cast is we kind of see it as a monolith cast, but it wasn't. People came in and came out because it's based on sketch comedy. It's based on an improv comedy troupe. That's what it's based
Second
on.
City, which
And
started,
Second
I
City,
believe,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the the Toronto branch of Second City. And so that they very much formed in that way. And so you have people like John Candy who are in for the first couple seasons, but then disappear. Rick Moranis doesn't show up until I think season 3 and doesn't last until season 6. Like, so you think some of the most iconic sketches that we know from this series, the iconic characters, weren't there the whole time. Martin Short doesn't show up till later on. So like I said, you're right.
Yeah, there's
comedic like masters. And the other thing is there are other people in that you guys don't know who are legends up here in Canada. Like Jane Eastwood's in the first and then the 5th and the 6th season. Legend up here.
Yeah,
and then there's also people like Ivan Reitman who show up. Like, so
Ivan Reitman, as in the director of Ghostbusters, Ivan Reitman.
Sorry, I mean Harold Ramis. I might get my brain just
Harold Ramis
froze. Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis is in it. Yeah, Harold Ramis shows up. Egon shows up.
Yep.
And so you get these people that are like legends in comedy, but they're not there as much as we think they are.
Yeah, you can really count on like one hand the number of people that lasted the whole time. Like Joe Flaherty was pretty much there the whole time.
Eugene
Andrea
Levy.
Martin. Yeah, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin. They all pretty much went the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, Catherine Hara came in early. I mean, let me just run down the list of some of these names, and people will go, "Oh my God!" You know, John Candy, Robin Duke, Joe Flaherty, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Rick Moranis, Catherine O'Hara, Harold Ramis, Martin Short, Dave Thomas. I mean, these
not
are
the guy who owns
people.
Wendy's. The different like Dave Thomas.
Yes, and I think the other thing that made SCTV stand out, at least for me, opposed to SNL, is SNL every sketch. You know, it's scattershot, sketch. You get some recurring characters. You'll get, you know, like Wayne's World, or you'll get the church lady. You'll get Opera Man, whatever. But the SCTV actually had a through line. If you watch every season, there is like an actual story arc going on between the sketches.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's one of its strengths, is it builds those characters.
can we talk about where we first, Gary, you probably are similar to me, us being down here in the southerly US of A. But I saw SNL after Saturday Night Live on NBC. So we had to wait until midnight Central, 1 o'clock Eastern to get. So it was an endurance test to see SCTV, and so most of us at the time, most of the people my age, we watched SNL. We all did. But then there was the huge drop off, and only the cool ones stayed up additionally and sacrificed their well-being the next day to get that extra hour and a half of SCTV, and that meant a lot of Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Coke, Yoo-hoo, things with caffeine. For 200, that was how it was. It was an endurance test, and because only later did we get VCRs, if you missed it or you fell asleep after like segment 2, you didn't get another shot. You couldn't rewind it or catch it again. In fact, most of the SNL sketches, most of the SCTV, I apologize, I didn't see again until DVDs came out. Google them, children. That SCTV seasons were on DVD, and of course, I got all those. But Gary.
Yeah, I saw it in syndication, which it didn't hit American syndication until like season 3. And I just stumbled across it one night. It was one of the late night UHF shows. And I was like, this is weird, but it's funny. And I like it.
Yeah.
Especially because, I was a monster kid. I loved the horror host TV shows.
Yep.
And I just latched onto Count Floyd and Monster Chiller Horror Theater. Because it was like, this is, and, for the longest time I watched it and it was like, oh, this is just some other horror thing. And then you see the fake movie, and it was always Dr. Tongue's whatever.
Scary.
Yes, it's very scary. And I still remember the first time I was watching one time, and they were doing a news show as one of the sketches, and Floyd
Robertson, named after Lloyd Robertson, the Canadian anchor, longtime CTV Canadian anchor. Yep.
There's so much.
He was the weatherman, and I was like,
granted, we're like, okay. But Deanna was like, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, that's the point, is that the reference is, you guys saw this weird little show. We saw a show that was commenting on Canadian culture and Canadian society and Canadian entertainment. But Gary, you finish, and then I can go on.
But seeing that Count Floyd's day job as the station's weatherman added a whole other layer, because you realize, all these horror hosts have quote unquote legit jobs at the station. And again, fed that hole, because the premise, for anybody who doesn't know, is that it's an actual network show broadcasting out of, I believe this town was like Monroeville, which forever they would not say exactly if it was in Canada or if it was in America until later seasons, because they were trying to get both. And it was just such a weird, fun little show.
Melonville.
I got hooked on it. Melonville, thank you. And I remember when it was a big deal, when it was coming to NBC, they were picking up and we're going to start carrying it. And like we were talking about, a good chunk of this cast went on and to do, be legends of comedy. Rick Moranis, Martin Short, who went on to SNL, taking Ed Grimley with him.
I first saw Ed Grimley on SCTV, and that's something I think I want to get into. Ed Grimley, hilarious, and I absolutely loved Ed Grimley. One other kid that I went to, the one other kid, Dave Douglas, that I went to high school with, knew who Ed Grimley was the next day or the next week at school. And so through that, me and him became just best buddies. And to this day, believe it or not, we saw Dune 2, or the second Dune movie, just a few months ago. But that is how it started for us. And because, like I said, very few of us, SCTV was a subset of the SNL fans. And it was like we had some ownership of SCTV. Like, because so few people, granted, ownership as in, this is a show that we have and nobody else knows about, except for an entire country.
Entire country. Because when you say, when did you first know about it? Understand that I was 6 years old or 5 years old when it started, sorry. So it's always been on. And when I say it's always been on, you need to understand how Canadian television works. We have a system called the CanCon rules, Canadian content rules. And so television networks have to show a certain amount of Canadian programming every day. And the rules are Byzantine and they're complicated. So they end up producing things like SCTV. Murdoch Mysteries would be another example of something that you might know. Kids in the Hall. Yes. And those get played. They count for a lot because it's a Canadian crew, it's a Canadian actors, Canadian writers. And so SCTV would be on Sunday afternoons at 1:30 while they were waiting for the football game or the hockey game to start, because they owned it, or it was cheap to buy, so they could fill it in, because it was originally made by Global, which is the third network up here. CBC is our national broadcaster. Woo! CTV is a commercial network. And then Global is the third national network. You could argue City is now the fourth, but at that time we only had three. And Global was the first producer of it. But like literally it could be on at 11 o'clock at night. It could be on at 6 o'clock in the morning. It could be on at 1:30. And so it was always on. Like the televisions being thrown over the balcony is something I firmly remember from my childhood, seeing multiple times. And my interest and love of it didn't come until Bob and Doug became a phenomenon. I was of an age that pop culture was important to me at that point. And where Bob and Doug, they had an album, they had a movie, but
every Christmas we hear
a beer in a tree. Yeah. And the song, the Takeoff song with Geddy Lee from Rush, Yes. No, I mean, I had the whole album. We all had the whole album, and records, kids, ask your parents. Although those are hip now, apparently. Apparently we've come back round. Soon, Joe, soon the 8-track tape will come back. So it was always on. And so you always saw it. Plus, the people within it became such stars that your parents would be like, well, they were in SCTV. Interestingly enough, also a significant portion of that cast was also in Godspell. The Toronto production of Godspell is noted as being a career launcher for many of them as well. It was always on. We always saw it. And the characters, the skits, the shows, the production value is very much reminiscent of Canadian television at that time, because this was incredibly cheap to produce. You had a bunch of, in the first season, unknown comedians doing skits in a television studio. Yes. That's it. There was very little outside shots, if any. and so it was incredibly cheap to produce, and eventually it was, it bounced around, global. Then I think it was CBC picked it up for a while, and then Super Channel, which was what we call a pay TV up here. You guys would call it cable. But it's when we started getting our paid channels, it picked it up for its final season or two. But yeah, it was always on. It was always on. Always.
That's amazing, because it was down here never on. And we
Yeah,
had
it's
to
Become the 11th province. It'll be on all the time. It's probably
Good.
still always on. Like, the
Good.
reality is, Kids in the Hall, all these things, because the way in which Canadian TV works, they're on. Like, they're like, if I was to go to the CBC Gem app, I could probably watch. Like, I know that Amazon has it now, but there's a lot of Canadian television you can just watch if you
Sweet.
have the CBC Gem app.
I cheap plug for the Gem app. Please sponsor the quarantine panels.
They don't have any money. Although Prime Minister Carney is giving them more money as part of our national unity push. So they're actually opening up more news stations now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good.
But it's good, Joe, that you talked about the fact that it was one of those, a small group of dedicated fans. It's always wild for me when there's a show that does something like that, where it's, it may not be the biggest hit, it may not be the most popular, but it has that underground. And like MST3K started that way. Sequest you could say that. I mean, there is a very hardcore fan group, but in the wider popular culture, most people are like, what? And then MST3K broke out, and SCTV sort of broke out when it hit NBC, and especially, like you mentioned, Deanna, Bob and Doug McKenzie. If there's anything anybody knows from SCTV, it's Bob and Doug or Ed Grimley.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is that it's funny to me that Bob and Doug McKenzie is the one that breaks out, because Bob and Doug McKenzie is a sketch that's making fun of the American stereotype of Canadians.
Yes.
So it's, you guys think, well, they're making fun of Canadians. No, we're making fun of what people think we are. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, almost everybody in Canada knows somebody named Bob or Doug. We do. Doug is actually an incredibly Canadian name. There's a lot of Dougs. But the other thing is, we also know somebody who's a lot like Bob and Doug. If you go to a local small town hockey rink, you will meet somebody like Bob or Doug. There's a reason why that stereotype comes back again in Red Green. If you've ever seen the Red Green show, it's basically Bob and Doug, but with power tools. And so, it's the same stereotype. And the beer and the how's it going, which we don't talk like that.
No. But Americans
occasionally say A, but I think, Gary, how many years have we been podcasting before you finally heard me say it? I think it would have been like 5 years. Yeah, it was 5 years before you finally heard me say A.
Day one, Deanna.
But it was also making fun of CanCon. It was
totally making fun of
That was
CanCon.
the whole reason they came up with Bob and Doug.
Yeah, Bob and Doug McKenzie. We need more Canadian content. Yeah, those look into those rules sometime if you're bored, because they are wild. There is a French television station on the other side of the river from me that when I was in my late teens, early 20s, they probably still do it. I just don't see it anymore. Would show what you would call blue movies, softcore porn, at Grimley. They would show it on Saturday nights, and they could count it as CanCon because the movies were dubbed in Montreal. They were dubbed into French in Montreal, so they counted for the CanCon. The rules are bizarre. Just look into them sometimes. It's wild.
Yes, not right now.
No, stay with us.
Wait for us.
Stay with us. So I have a question for you guys. So would Ed Grimley be your favorite character / sketch coming out of it, Joe?
Yeah, just because because Martin Short, for one thing, and secondly, just because it was around the same time when Pee Wee Herman broke out, and although they're very different,
Yep.
just the very idea, and maybe Ed Grimley was one of the first sketches that, at our age, we could attempt to imitate the hair and the dance and the costume, and that was like we would all dance that way down the hallway at school, and
Yes.
the other 98% of the school would be like, do they need help? What's going on?
And think about it. The other thing is that Ed Grimley is a character that started in SCTV, but transferred over to Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
doesn't happen very often. Normally, if you create a character in a show, it's locked into the show. And I don't have proof of this, but it's very clear that to me that the way in which the show was structured, the actors, the actors kept their characters. They were their characters,
That's
not
good.
the show's characters.
The thing about SCTV, and they carry on through the decades. Whenever these actors show up in things, for example, just a few years ago, Martin Short did Jackie Rogers Jr. on Saturday Night Live, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And that's been a million years since SCTV was on the air, but I was like Jackie Rogers Jr. when he came out, and the $100,000 jackpot wad, and I was so happy to see Jackie Rogers Jr. But the stuff sticks with you,
So my
and
favorite character.
Oh,
go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
My favorite characters are the Schmengi brothers. I love the Schmengi brothers. I think they are very emblematic of a certain type of local cable programming, or Lawrence Welk show level of programming, where you would have the local music star. We had it up here. There was a show called The Family Brown, which was a local country country band made up of a family who would have every single Sunday at 5:30 would have a half an hour on the local CTV station to do sing songs and tell stories. And the Schmengi brothers are very much in that vein. And I was talking with Joe and Gary about this before we started broadcasting, but if you Google the Schmengi brothers on David Letterman, they do a bit on David Letterman that I find hilarious. The cabbage rolls and coffee polka, like, it's really good.
Yes.
But also there's if you are a fan of John Candy, that's a shout out reference in Home Alone when he provides the truck to Catherine O'Hara to get her back to Kevin, and he's in a polka band. That's a shout out, a callback to the Schmengi brothers.
And when I watched,
especially since she was on the show with him. So.
Yep, exactly. Well, yeah, and so they are my favorite. That's like, yes, Bob and Doug McKenzie are fun, but the Schmengi brothers are just they.
I love the one bit they did of the Christmas with the Schmengis. Was a hilarious little skit.
Oh my god.
Yeah. The trading of the socks.
Like I said, it's very much of its sort of like if you grew up where you had a local TV station that would have a music program once a week, and it would be of that level. And
ours was Country Boy Eddie. Because of course it was. But the
Schmengi brothers speak to the fact that a great deal of the Canadian West was settled by Eastern Europeans. So polka was massive out, like, Manitoba, the Ukrainian community out there is huge. And so you've got just polka is part of sort of the Canadian fabric of music in a way that I know there's a polka scene in the U.S. because we have Weird Al, but I don't know if it's to the same thing where it's not as much now.
It's
But it's
no,
not as
it
much now. But when I was a child, if you were going out west, you can guarantee there would be a polka dance out west at some point.
oh yeah.
You would see a sign.
Well, especially
So,
the upper cold Midwest, like
yeah.
Minnesota and that sort of
Yep.
place. A lot of that crowd immigrated and landed there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary, favorite character?
I mentioned it before, Count Floyd. I just love Count Floyd. I think he is a treat, and watching him go, all right, kids, here's this movie, Dr. Tongue's House of Cats. It's scary. And then it cuts back, and he's like, this isn't scary. What the hell did you guys give me? Hey, kids, wasn't that great? Watching him get frustrated was
Yeah.
always funny.
They lay that out. I think it's the first or second episode when somebody comes up to him and goes, "What do you mean we can't get the movie?" Right? It's so good, right? It just speaks
And
to that low budget, right? Like just
Yeah,
the thing
and
is
that's where
about
it became.
like
we got,
you were
oh,
saying,
Joe.
Gary, about being a monster kid. You knew what he was making fun of.
Yes, exactly.
And I knew a little bit and learned later, like, oh, but
And then and then we got the running gag is most of his movies were in 3D. So
Which-
it was
yeah.
like Dr. Tongue's Evil House of Pancakes. Would you like a pancake? Pancake.
would you like a DVD?
Mm-hmm.
oh
And yeah, but it was just funny to watch these terrible. And the thing is, the terrible movies that they made were not that far off
No.
from the bad movies you would see on these shows.
That's the thing. The fact that the continued storyline, the continuing subplot storyline that we mentioned earlier was part of the charm. These guys just ran a bad TV station and did the best they could.
Yes.
And when the movie UHF came out, it was like SCTV. Or
Yeah.
to me it was. When I watched UHF, I was like, this is funny like SCTV was fun.
yeah.
But I okay, here's what I wanted to say about Count Floyd. He, of course, when Ed Grimley had a Saturday morning cartoon, Count
Yes.
Floyd did little bits amidst the scenes in the Ed Grimley cartoon. And just as good translated to Saturday morning as he was late night Saturday night. And to go even deeper with the SCTV fandom, we of course touched on the Takeoff song, the Bob and Doug McKenzie album. Count Floyd had one too. And I was also at the time into Dr. Demento. So not only was I catching it from one direction, and loving Count Floyd and Bob and Doug McKenzie, but then on Dr. Demento, Count Floyd had a single where there was just a disco beat in the background and he told a serial killer story. And it ended with, all the kids in the car getting killed. And he goes, isn't that scary? But it was just Count Floyd talking. And that kind of thing just blew my mind. And everybody was like, hey, did you hear that? Like I said, the three people who, it's an even smaller Venn diagram if you like Dr. Demento and SCTV. It might have been me.
It very
We
much
got Dr. Demento up here.
I mean, it reached a good level of popularity, especially with critics, but it never really broke big the way I think Saturday Night Live did. And I think part of it is because it required you to watch SNL. You can drop in and out. It doesn't matter because, like I said, there are recurring characters, but there's no through lines. SCTV kind of requires you to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dare we say it's a bit more cerebral?
Yes. And
Yeah,
it's
we
also
can say
much
that.
shorter. It's like half an hour opposed to an hour and a half.
Well, that's because we didn't have the budget. One of the seasons got to be 90. I think when NBC picked it up as part of its block, they got to
those
do
are the
90
ones
minutes.
that I remember.
But you know what? I would argue that giving them 30 minutes means that they have to be very, very judicious in what they use. They have to be brutal in cutting things that aren't going to work. And one of the problems with SNL is it is long, and
You got to fill time.
there is a temptation to let a skit run long. There's a temptation to let it you have to fill the time. And so sometimes you're going to have a skit that doesn't work. I'm not going to say that everything in SCTV worked, because that's not true.
Right.
But, and some of it is of its time. If you go back and watch it, you go, maybe not. But because of the 30-minute format, and also the budgetary restrictions, they had to be very creative, and they had to really kind of make sure they were using their time effectively. And it's quite good.
I watched a few SCTV sketches today. Well, that's really every day. But now that I can, I watched a few in prep for this, and a sketch that I really fondly remember was 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I remember it being, I don't know how long, but it certainly was longer than 2 minutes. Half-Wits, a game show.
Yes.
2 minutes?
Yep.
And it was freaking great. But they had to stick and move on SCTV.
Well, brevity is the soul of wit, Joe.
What?
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Thank you. I learned something new.
That's a quote. I didn't come up with that.
I know you didn't.
Education.
I'm a smart Deanna.
Ask your librarian.
I would say,
look it up for you.
Yeah, I would say, no show is, well, very few shows are perfect. And SCTV, yes. Well, yes, Manimal was. Manimal didn't have time to get bad.
It didn't.
Yes.
Didn't have time to get good either.
How dare you?
Oh!
But
that's how you know Joe's not in charge of the StreamYard tonight, because otherwise I would have been booted.
Yep. But some of it is, like you said, Deanna. Some of it's dated. Some of this 50. What was funny 50 years ago sometimes doesn't fly anymore.
Nope.
And I would say the other problem I have with it sometimes is some of the skits, even at the 2 minutes, some of the skits kind of drag. I remember, especially in the later seasons, when they were doing more focusing on Guy and Andrea Martin's character.
Edith Prickly.
Prickly.
Yeah, when they were doing a lot of stuff of them and their struggles to keep the network going, some of those skit bits to me felt like, would you just get on with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, it's like so much of it though is gold and still works.
And even as we're talking, I'm remembering little bits and pieces of sketches that I don't maybe aren't funny now, but were hilarious to me at the time. There was an episode where they wanted to rip off Different Strokes, and they got Conrad Bain's for real life brother to play him on the show, and they did a Different Strokes sketch, and the kid they got could not remember his line, the one catchphrase.
Oh, the catchphrase.
Yeah, and of course, and it was really Conrad Bain's brother, and they looked identical, and just the weirdness of it. And speaking of weirdness, I have another example. There was much like they did on SNL sometimes. It's sketches. Every cast member is in it playing somebody from that time period. And it was it might have been a Christmas sketch. And on the DVD extras, I remember Dave Thomas said he was supposed to be Rich Little, and he didn't look anything like Rich Little. So during the live performance of the sketch, he decided that he was Fred Travalena, who is an even lesser known American impressionist than Rich Little.
Rich Little is Canadian, or was Canadian. I believe he's from Ottawa, but I'll look that up. Rich Little was Canadian. So
I bet Fred Travalena was Canadian too.
Probably, but I can tell you, Rich Little is most definitely Canadian.
Look, a good chunk of America's comedy sweethearts are Canadian.
Yep. Okay, no, he was American, but
Fred Travalena.
The thing was, he like on the fly, he decided he was a different character, and the rest of the cast just went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was SCTV to me.
But because that's improv. Somebody
Yeah.
does
Yep.
something, you don't stop and go, wait, when we rehearsed this, you were somebody else.
That's
You
the
go.
thing.
It's a yes and.
That was my
right?
first. That was my first exposure to it, I think. And now, apparently, that's all I do. at Dragon Con, Gary, you're familiar with this. We just improv for like 4 days.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do.
They don't actually plan. It's kind of like Cats in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. If you just show up and start doing a panel, they'll just play along.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, Joe and I haven't planned a panel since 1980.
Nope. We have not. So
But
what,
there were 3 actors or 3 performers that span the whole show.
Okay.
And for the longest time, for me, and I'm going to go ahead and list them who they are, but it was Andrea Martin, Joe Flaherty, and Eugene Levy.
The glue.
And
They
for
were like-
me, for the longest time, Eugene Levy was like this unsung comedy guy for
Yeah.
me, because he was in all these different movies in bit parts. He was in at all the SCTV. He would show up on different TV shows. And then he was the dad in American Pie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just exploded, and it was so nice to finally see him get his due on Schitt's Creek.
Yeah. You can also
was
mention
gonna
he was in the
say-
Christopher Guest movies.
Oh, yes.
Best in Show and Mighty Wind. He's in that. But yeah, Schitt's Creek, of course, which was created by his son. He helped create it. Eugene contributed to the creation, but it was Dan who really came up with the idea of what would happen if the Kardashians lost all their money and had to move to rural Canada.
And that show itself is, well, of course, Catherine O'Hara
Yep.
is
Yep.
in it, but the seeds of SCTV, are all throughout that show, and it feels like it as you're watching it. You're going
I know that show hit at the perfect time for everybody because Netflix was playing it during the pandemic and people were in their basements, and it is such a life-affirming show. But it also, Eugene Levy's comic genius, but the fact that he also can step back and allow others to have he's a very giving
Yes.
performer.
Yeah,
That's
he's
not
not
true of all
bizarre.
comedic performers. A lot of let's people in. A lot of people get into acting because they crave attention. And speaking as somebody who went to a performing arts high school for drama, a lot of actors are there because they crave attention. And it's hard sometimes to give space.
Yes.
Eugene Levy is capable of doing that. It's kind of awesome. But then you talk Catherine O'Hara's in that, and I mean, she was always a comedic genius. Like we already knew
Yes.
that from Beetlejuice, from Home, like
That's the thing.
from her multitude of things that she's done.
when she appeared in those movies, the 3 of us were like, we know her.
No, she's Canadian. I would be like, she's Canadian.
And we would say,
But in
"She's
Schitt's
Canadian."
Creek,
Our one Canadian friend that we'll have in 20 years is
she
right now
knows.
pointing at the screen going, she's Canadian.
But if you watch Schitt's Creek, one of the genius bits with Catherine O'Hara in that show is the wigs. Because
Yes.
she was the one who came up with the idea that Moira had to wear wigs as a character bit. And then she would wear the wigs backwards, upside down. Like she would wear them weird. Like she wouldn't just wear them the way they were meant to be worn. And that goes back to what her background, what that we see in SCTV, of that ability to make look like an idiot for the bit, right? Like because it's what the character would do, so I'm going to do it regardless of how stupid it looks.
Yeah.
And so yes, you see that training come out. I also have to say Catherine O'Hara wasn't just a comedic actress. We know her as a comedic actress, but if you watch Home Alone, there are moments where she's trying to get back to her son that you absolutely believe she's a mother whose heart is breaking and has this weight of guilt that she's left her child behind because, you know, there's a whole feminist treatise here about how women have to carry the burden. But she is just she's breaking, she's holding herself together to get back to her kid. Like that, it's right there. And when she sees Kevin again at the end of the movie, that it's her performance that will bring you to tears. It's not like, you know, Macaulay Culkin does a great job, but it's not Macaulay Culkin that makes you cry at the end when he sees his mom. It's mom seeing him that makes you just, whoa, because, or at least get a little teary, right? Think like, oh, I got some salt in my eye. I gotta, you know, just wipe some out, because she's so good. And yep, she's a comedic actress, but like many of the great comedic actors out there, she is capable of flipping the coin in a way that I would argue many dramatic actors aren't capable of going the other way.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
I mean, we could do a whole panel about comedic actors giving incredibly moving, serious performances. And just as equally a panel of the other way of serious actors trying to do comedy, looking at you, Robert De Niro, and
12 minutes. It would be like 15 minutes and that'd be it.
but we could list off all the people who thought they could do comedy and can't, right? But all these people who can do comedy who can break your heart. Like just are capable. So Catherine in my mind is in that stratosphere. And again, as much as Schitt's Creek is a comedy, there are moments in there that you see it, especially in her relationship with David, in Moira's relationship with David, that the pathos, the wanting to support him and love him as he has that journey into a relationship and acceptance that he does is honestly gorgeous. But back to SCTV. So she's in it, like, so you're right, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, and Joe Flaherty. And in many ways, them and Dave Thomas didn't necessarily get the same kind of heights as your John Candy's, your Catherine O'Hara's, your Martin Short, right? Yeah. And your Rick Moranis. Like, those four break out in Hollywood big ways, like with big blockbuster movies and big careers. And the only reason why Rick Moranis stopped was because his wife got sick and he pledged to stay home and look after his kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what he decided to do.
Yeah, but he was a titan of 80s comedy.
Yep.
You know, anything he was in was gold. I mean, I can't think of a bad Rick Moranis project.
Yeah, maybe the second Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie, but yeah.
How dare you? Why, Deanna?
First the manimal insult, now this. I mean, why am I friends with this person?
Yeah, and I'm not going to hold Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 2 against him, because when Disney shows up to your house with a dump truck full of money...
Well, and let's be blunt, they probably also, it was probably in the contract for the first movie that if this does well, you'll get a second, and you can't say no.
Yeah, but I mean...
no, that's how it works.
But yeah, Little Shop of Horrors, Ghostbusters...
Little Shop of Horrors. Like, let's talk about that movie and how that movie, you know, I mean, yes, it's based on other things, but at the same time, like, come on. Like, that movie is exquisite on a level that I don't think many people appreciate. Like, that's brilliant.
But that's a whole other panel.
That's a whole other panel.
Yes.
We could do that with the musical panel, with the performing arts panel, Gary.
Yes.
We're not going to be doing that. Okay, so what?
Kickball change, Joe. Kickball change.
Yeah, but it was for me. With the point, I guess I was trying to make though is it's finally good to see Eugene Levy for me get that recognition that I feel like he deserved the whole time.
He may have been the last one to.
Well, Joe, I don't think Joe Flaherty ever really broke out. He
was in Happy Gilmore and he was in Freaks and Geeks.
But
and Dave Thomas did writing. Like, Dave Thomas is still writing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Writing for American television shows. So
you know how you do with the TV Guide, and now today with Wikipedia. Whenever any show comes on, now I go and look and see what the other actors have done elsewhere. But I did that with TV Guide back in the day, and Flaherty never really, like, when I saw him in Happy Gilmore, which was years after, I was like, again, I know him, and he was great in Happy Gilmore, but he was playing people or a character similar to things he had done on SCTV. And I think I may be wrong about this. I think the first SCTV from that era, from the SCTV network era to break out, I think was John Candy.
Oh yeah, John Candy I think was the first one to really break huge.
And when Splash happened,
Yes.
already Tom Hanks was the funny guy from that sitcom, Bosom Buddies, and he had been on SNL a couple of times. And I thought, well, that's going to be fun. I'll sit down and watch Splash. And there's my dude, John Candy.
Yep.
And there's just something, and I believe Eugene Levy's in that too, in Splash also. But they were in a lot of ways. One gets big, the other, and they bring the others with them.
It's like, oh, we need a writer. I know a guy.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that sometimes, and Canadians are just as guilty of this as Americans are, sometimes if one of our performers is not appearing in large American shows, we say, what's happened to them? But Joe Flaherty actually went on to be a professor at Humber College and started like their comedy writing program. And,
Good.
you know, like he taught a generation of comedy writers coming out of Humber College. So
Perfect.
it's not like he, you know, was living in a
No.
cave somewhere. He continued to produce and to contribute. And that's something, like I said, Canadians are just as guilty of this as anybody else. Somebody is big and we're like, where are they now? Well, they're still doing stuff. It's just that
That's the thing.
they're not doing Hollywood stuff, but they're doing, you know, touring productions. They're running a local theater. They're teaching at the local university. They've got a small TV
Love
show, you know, they pop up on us on a TV show.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
I love that. I love just whenever any of them show up on anything.
Yes.
And Andrea Martin, I think, in the last few years has been working and doing a lot more stuff.
Well, she was in my Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah, that
Um,
was,
yeah, and its sequel, which came out like years after the first one.
yeah, yeah, but
yeah, no, she's still working. They all
yeah.
are.
They all
And Martin
are.
Short, as we all know, you know, Murders in the Building. He's dating
Yes.
Meryl Streep. Like
as
he's
far
living
as we
good.
know. But the recently Martin Short hosted Password on ABC, like a game show, and it's mostly terrible, but he tries so hard. And one week, one of the panelists was Andrea Martin, and I think I bet it's completely random, but for that whole half hour, they just did bits with each other.
Yeah,
There were
yeah. They
five
fell
other
back into old
There were
routines.
5 panelists and 2 contestants. Might as well have not even been there. But
Yeah.
it was a thing of beauty because they had in jokes and the rapport was still there, and
Yep.
it was just beautiful.
Yeah,
Yep. And she became a Canadian citizen in 2017.
yeah. I know because Joe
Nice.
Flaherty is also American too. Like they're not all Canadian, but the show came out of Canada, came out of Global TV in Canada, and originally, and
Yeah.
then
And a
moved
good
over.
chunk of it was Canadian.
Yep, yep.
Canada really has the best people.
It does.
Thank you.
And I say that as not being from there, but everyone is handsome, and half of the group that I started doing nerdy stuff with has moved up there. Our friend Shane Ivey and his
One
whole
of
family.
One of us.
Hey,
Exactly.
I'd immigrate if they'd let me.
Yeah, they will eventually, Gary. They
So
don't-
he
I don't know, I
might
might
be moving
still
to
be on
he
a
might be
watch
moving to
list.
my end of the country too, because he's on the other end of the country. But he might actually be moving to my neck of the woods, and I'm so
Love it.
excited. If he does, I'm going to be really excited.
Yes.
Oh, he's not that fun. And thank you, Shane. I hope you're watching. But
But we've been going for about an hour. So is there anything else about the show that you wanted to say, Joe, and then Deanna?
Look on YouTube, just 4 little letters, and you will find something funny. I recommend Five Neat Guys, the Farm Report, where with Joe Flaherty as Big Jim McBob, and every little there's a Western skit. This is what I was talking about earlier, where the skit's 2 minutes, with a theme song and everything. John Candy plays a cowboy named Yellow Belly, and he walks into town, and a little kid goes, "Hey, that's a Yellow Belly!" So he shoots the kid. And then the mom goes, "Oh my God, Yellow Belly just shot my kid." And then he shoots her too. And then he runs away, and the theme music goes, "Yellow Belly, where you gonna run to now?" It's 2 minutes. There's so much of that. And Five Neat Guys, we got to get in the fictional bands next time.
Schmengi Brothers
them
should
and
be
the
in
Schmengi
fictional
Brothers.
bands. The Schmengi Brothers should be there.
Brothers.
Come on, I think Cabbage Rolls and Coffee would beat a lot of things.
Every little thing about SCTV has a gem of just unadulterated silliness in it. Get it. Look for it. It'll brighten up your day.
If I was going to wrap this up, one of the things I would say is one of the reasons why Canadians are so good at comedy is we're like the little brother or sister to the American system. And so we are outside the system, but we know it very, very well. And so because of that, we, like your little brother or sister, we poke fun at you. Very much. And a lot of our comedy comes out of that. And if you look at SCTV for what it is, represents a struggling television station, it is as much making fun of Canadian television as it is making fun of American, small town American television and the tropes in there. And so with that, you know, there's a lot of really good stuff. It's all available on Amazon now. So if you have an Amazon subscription, or, you know, your mom has an Amazon subscription and you're babysitting the cat, you can watch all of it. And as Joe said, it's available on DVD. You can still get things that play DVDs, guys.
Yes.
Your library might even have
highly
DVDs.
recommend it.
Yeah, exactly. Given what's happening in the streaming world, your library may even have DVDs that you could borrow. And get your library card and go borrow stuff from the library. But yeah, it's out there. It's really good. It is of its time.
Yes.
But it is.
So are we.
Yep. Shh. But also you see baby versions of people who are now legends of comedy. They're babies in this. And so it's worth it even just for that. And it's lovely that it's on, that I can see it on streaming now because, you know, yeah. But again, it's always been on.
VHS tapes wear out.
It's probably on right now somewhere in Canada on a broadcast network that it's probably just playing randomly. Like,
yeah, and I'd say the same thing is go watch it, keeping in mind that it is of its time. And as we have said before, comedy is the entertainment, I think, that ages the worst. Very little comedy lasts. And is of its time and is stuck in its time. But SCTV has enough good bits, I think, that are timeless, that still hold up.
Or
because
even
of this cast.
Yeah, even if they're not funny anymore, some of them are astutely commenting on society. Like I think of the Johnny LaRue sketches of, you know, the washed up TV star, he's sleeping with somebody and, and there's all this drama around him. And it's actually a bit of like they were making fun of it. But if you put the lens on of, he could be one of 36 people, right, that we could name off right now of, faded television stars who have become jokes, who have become parodies of themselves, who have become embarrassments, right?
Parodies and embarrassments. Gary, now you go.
Yeah, it's like Catherine O'Hara is one of her big characters. Lola Heatherton, the faded pop star. who's desperately trying to cling on to her sex appeal. I mean, it really does show you what the entertainment world was like in that time. And I kind of miss the days of the struggling UHF stations.
Yeah.
Because that's a bygone era now. We don't have that anymore. We've got all the streaming or the major networks. You don't have UHF channel 46 doing its best to stay alive.
Yeah.
And one could argue that sometimes that TikTok and YouTube have taken on that sort of part of our culture.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the struggling UHF station is responsible for some of the cultural gems because they would take risks that the major networks would not take. Right? Like if you think about it, MST3K comes out of its cable. We're going to give you an hour. Go do something. And so those small town stations did things that nobody else would do. And 99.99% of the time it was forgettable. But every so often genius came out. And that's part of what SCTV is looking at. It's making fun of the 99.9% of the time that it's garbage. But here's a case where the third network in Canada came up with a half-hour show that is genius. It took a chance on this, and it's absolutely genius.
Yeah, and it laid the groundwork for like the movie UHF. It laid the groundwork for like Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job.
It's in the vein of Canadian comedy that we then see again with Kids in the Hall. It's the same, and it's something that comes up over. It's a sketch comedy, absolutely, and they're not the first to do it. But without SCTV, we don't get Kids in. I would argue we don't get Kids in the Hall. We don't, and you guys don't know who the Frantics are, but the Frantics are also in that term. Boot to the head, yeah, boot to the head. Frantic. So, I love it. Become our 11th province. You'd be great.
I'm in.
Socialized medicine for all. Yay!
And all the maple syrup you can drink.
That's only in the eastern part of the country.
That's the part.
That's my area.
Exactly.
Out west, they don't really do the maple syrup. That's not what they're at. They smoke salmon out.
But they still
have and poutine, delicious. Okay, so can we? Because I want to wrap it up.
Okay.
I know, Gary, you're.
We don't want to let the sketch go on too long.
No.
I have a way to wrap it up. Y'all tell me when.
Go for it. When.
May the good Lord take a liking to you and blow you up real soon.
Wait.
All right, everybody, come back in 2 weeks. Our next topic is another anniversary. We're going to be talking about the fact that it's 40 years since Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns came out. So we go from Canadian comedy to grim American vigilante.
Similar.
All right. Very similar. Very similar. So everybody, remember to please like, subscribe, share, tip your waitresses, and we should all do a little 3D.
3D, scary. What about
scary.
So scary.
Would either of you like a DVD?
Ah!
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 Ah!